Democracy depends on a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. A federal judge ordered the Trump administration to restore U.S. funding for foreign aid. Judge Amir Ali, a Biden appointee, said Trump's executive order set off a shockwave for aid groups that relied on the money, which had already been appropriated by Congress. Lawyers argued the blanket freeze harmed both recipients of the aid and U.S. businesses and organizations that provide it, arguing before the court, quote, businesses are shuttering, terminating employees, food is rotting, medication expiring. A group of 14 states have sued Donald Trump and Elon Musk, accusing the president of giving the world's richest man seemingly limitless and unchecked power to dismantle federal agencies, saying it's, quote, antithetical to the nation's entire constitutional structure, unquote. Earlier this week, President Trump signed an executive order to expand the power of Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. The lawsuit comes as the Trump administration fired thousands of workers, including at the Departments of Education, Energy, and Veterans Affairs, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Office of Personnel Management, the Environmental Protection Agency, the General Services Administration, and the Small Business Administration. On Thursday, Musk said the Trump administration should, quote, delete entire agencies, unquote, from the federal government. Fired federal workers at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau took part in a protest Wednesday outside the agency's headquarters in Washington, D.C., which have been closed all week.
The CFPB gets money back from consumers who've been screwed by banks and other financial institutions. Call your congressional representatives and say that you care about the CFPB continuing to exist.
The Trump administration's continuing to attack judges who rule against President Trump's executive actions. On Thursday, Elon Musk expressed support for impeaching the judge who blocked the president's funding freeze. Meanwhile, the American Bar Associations warned the rule of law and the nation's constitutional system are under attack. The U.S. Senate confirmed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as health secretary Thursday, handing him control of 13 federal agencies, including the CDC, FDA, and National Institutes of Health, and oversight over Medicare and Medicaid. Democrats repeatedly warned against RFK Jr.'s confirmation, citing his espousal of vaccine conspiracy theories, including one linking vaccines to autism. The only Republican to vote against Kennedy was Senator Mitch McConnell, a survivor of polio. He said, quote, I will not condone the relitigation of proven cures, unquote. Trump later attacked McConnell and cast doubt on whether he ever had polio. RFK Jr. will control nearly $2 trillion in health spending. After his confirmation, RFK Jr. said he expects major staffing cuts at federal health agencies. On the same day as Kennedy's confirmation and swearing in, Louisiana's top health official announced Louisiana will no longer promote mass vaccination. Also Thursday, Democratic senators grilled Linda McMahon, Trump's pick to lead the Education Department, which Trump has repeatedly threatened to shut down. McMahon, the former CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment, was questioned by Connecticut Democrat Chris Murphy on Trump's order banning diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI.
My son is in a public school. He takes a class called African American History. If you're running an African American history class, could you perhaps be in violation of this court order, of this executive order?
I'm not quite certain, and I'd like to look into it further and get back to you on that.
McMahon's hearing was interrupted by multiple protesters, including one who warned that the People with Disabilities Education Act, that's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is under threat. In other cabinet news, the Senate has confirmed Brooke Rollins as Agriculture Secretary, and the Senate Judiciary Committee has advanced Kash Patel's confirmation to head the FBI. Lee Zeldin, the new head of the Environmental Protection Agency, is attempting to rescind $20 billion in grants for climate and clean energy projects that have been awarded by the Biden administration. The money was set to go to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, known as the Green Bank, and fund projects benefiting disadvantaged communities. Zeldin also canceled a $50 million grant to the Climate Justice Alliance. The Biden administration had allocated the funding to the group, but later withheld it after CGA accused Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, allowing Trump's EPA to permanently cancel the grant. The top federal prosecutor in New York, the interim U.S. attorney, and 5 other high-ranking Justice Department officials have resigned to protest the Trump administration's order to dismiss corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. In a letter, the acting interim U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, Danielle Sassoon, said dropping the case against Adams would be, quote, inconsistent with my ability and duty to prosecute federal crimes without fear or favor and to advance good faith arguments before the courts, unquote. In her letter, Sassoon, who'd been appointed by Trump, went on to accuse Adams of promising to help Trump's immigration crackdown in exchange for the charges being dropped. After Sassoon refused to drop the charges, Justice Department officials moved the case to another division, leading to more resignations. Earlier Thursday, Adams met with Trump's so-called border czar, Tom Homan, to discuss plans to reopen an ICE office inside New York's Riker Island jail complex. Protesters rallied in the streets in response. This is a Nicaraguan asylum seeker.
Soy ciudadano nicaragüense.
I'm a Nicaraguan citizen. I came to this country looking for opportunity, the opportunity that was taken away from me in my country, the opportunity for freedom of speech, and to work here and to be a contributing citizen. The U.S. has taken away the liberty that Nicaragua has also taken away.
The Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who resigned, Danielle Sassoon, was a Federalist Society member and a law clerk for Justice Antonin Scalia. In related news, the Trump administration has taken back $80 million that FEMA had given New York City to cover the hotel costs for asylum seekers. New York's Comptroller Brad Lander accused Elon Musk of highway robbery. Earlier this week, Musk lashed out at the use of federal dollars to provide temporary shelter to asylum seekers, falsely claiming immigrants were staying in luxury hotels. Meanwhile, in Colorado, Denver's public school district has become the first in the nation to sue Trump over its policy allowing Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, to conduct raids at schools, which caused attendance to plummet. Ukraine has accused Russia of a drone attack on the Chernobyl nuclear plant. The attack sparked a fire, but Ukraine says radiation levels remain normal. This comes as Vice President J.D. Vance is meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the Munich Security Conference today. Vance told the Wall Street Journal the U.S. could slap Moscow with sanctions and even use, quote, military tools of leverage, unquote, if Vladimir Putin does not agree to a deal guaranteeing Ukraine's long-term independence. On Thursday, Trump said Ukraine would, of course, have a role in negotiations after evading a reporter question earlier this week on whether he saw Kyiv as an equal member of possible peace talks. In more foreign policy news, Trump has proposed talks with China and Russia aimed at the nuclear stockpiles and slashing all 3 of the country's military budgets in half, including the U.S. President Trump announced Thursday he's moving to impose reciprocal tariffs on trading partners across the globe, including longtime U.S. allies. He made the announcement ahead of a visit from Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the White House. During a joint news conference with Modi Thursday, Trump said the U.S. is increasing military sales to India, including the eventual sale of F-35 fighter jets. In Sudan, witnesses say the Rapid Support Forces stormed the country's largest camp for displaced people, looting and setting fires to homes and a market. The Zamzam camp in North Darfur has been repeatedly attacked since late last year. The RSF denied the reports about 500,000 displaced people who are suffering from famine live in the camp. The latest attack forced thousands of them to flee again. Doctors Without Borders said at least 7 people were killed. In the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, armed groups are subjecting children to sexual violence, including rape. That's according to UNICEF, which has warned the targeting of children by armed groups has soared to unprecedented levels. UNICEF says it's received at least 170 reports of rape involving children. One mother told UNICEF her 6 daughters, the youngest, 12 years old, were raped by armed men while searching for food. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says she's considering legal action against Google if Google refuses to reverse its renaming of the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America on Google Maps.
The only place where the United States can call it something different is where it exercises sovereignty, and that's 22 nautical miles from the coast, in its territory. So, Google is wrong.
Protesters in Bolivia disrupted a government conference Thursday that was discussing lithium contracts with Chinese and Russian businesses. Bolivians say the country's lithium, the largest reserves in the world, should benefit the people of Bolivia, and that deals were made without legally required consultation with indigenous communities. Lithium exploitation leads to soil degradation, water shortages, and disrupts local ecosystems. Last year was the deadliest for journalists. That's according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, which reports at least 124 journalists and media workers were killed in 2024. Nearly 2/3 of them Palestinian journalists killed by Israel. The CPJ also cites the high number of journalist deaths due to conflicts in Sudan, Pakistan, and Burma, also known as Myanmar. A federal judge temporarily blocked Trump's executive order attempting to shut down nationwide access to gender-affirming care for transgender minors. The judge's order prohibits federal agencies from conditioning or withholding funding to health care providers and institutions that provide the care. Kansas's Democratic Governor Laura Kelly vetoed a proposal to ban gender-affirming care for transgender youth for the 3rd straight year. Thus far, Kansas Republicans have failed to overrule Kelly's veto. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, 2 trans high school athletes are legally challenging Trump's order banning trans girls and women from competing in school sports. The city of Worcester, Massachusetts, passed a resolution designating itself a sanctuary city for the transgender community. Here in New York, protesters are gathering at the historic Stonewall Inn today at noon after the National Park Service attempted to erase trans and queer people from its history by removing the letters T and Q from references to LGBTQ+ people from the Stonewall National Monument website. The Stonewall Rebellion was led in part by Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, both transgender activists of color. A Texas judge ordered New York doctor Margaret Carpenter to stop prescribing and sending abortion pills to Texas patients and fined her $100,000. The case is expected to make its way to the Supreme Court in what would be a major test to shield laws that protect abortion providers nationwide. Meanwhile, New York Governor Kathy Hochul rejected an extradition request from Louisiana's Attorney General for the same doctor, citing New York shield laws. Dr. Carpenter was indicted in Louisiana for prescribing abortion pills to a patient there online. And Senator Bernie Sanders is launching a national tour to fight oligarchy, starting with stops in Omaha, Nebraska, and Iowa City next week to speak with working-class Americans who voted for Trump.
The oligarch's nightmare is that we will not allow ourselves to be divided up by race, religion, sexual orientation, or country of origin, and will together have the courage to take them on.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.